Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to this morning's webinar on employee retention and culture. My name is Laura Dulce. I'm the Executive Director of the Kennebunk-Kennebunkport-Arundel Chamber. And I want to introduce our panelists for today, starting with Colby Marvin Bracey. Colby is the Director of Human Resources and Philanthropy at the Nonantum, where she's worked since she was 15 in different roles. And Colby, I'm sure you're going to tell us more about the philanthropy part and the culture there. I also have with me Doug Spurling, and Doug is the owner of Spurling Fitness here in Kennebunk and a consultant to gyms pretty much the world over. And Mike, you are, let me get this right, the Vice President of Corporate Development and Training at Kennebunk Savings, and also started a leadership program there. And I'm sure you'll talk to us a little more about that as well. So we'll get started. I know each of you have some stuff you'd like to share, by all means.
Sure, I'm happy to go first. So as Laura mentioned, my name is Colby Bracey. I'm the Director of Human Resources and Philanthropy at the Nonantum Resort. So the Nonantum is a seasonal business. We employ about 200 people seasonally from April to December, and we hang on to around 20 year round. So for the remainder that get laid off, we do have about 92% retention year to year. And I think the most critical part of our retention strategy is that it's really not about retention at all. So our goal is to make the employment experience a great one. And one of the unintended consequences of that is that our employees come back to us year after year. And we all know that money talks, but what happens when you're a small business like us and you can't afford to pay people $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year? So I'll spend the next few minutes discussing some non-financial strategies to keep your staff happy, and I'll also touch on a few tips for seasonal employers to retain staff from season to season. So we hear a lot that the thing that makes the Nonantum stand out is our staff, and this is 100% intentional. I do all of our hiring, and I hire 95% for attitude and cultural fit, and really only 5% for skills. And so what I mean by that is that our staff has to be friendly and kind. I look for people who want to help others. They're excellent conversationalists. They can anticipate the need of our guests, and they're genuinely nice. Of course, they have to have some basic computer skills, and there are certain positions that require some prior job experience. But on the whole, I really feel like we can teach people how to do their jobs, but we really can't teach people how to be nice, and we can't teach them how to have personality. So because of this, our guests are happy and our staff is happy because they work with people who work just as hard as they do, and they're nice to them. And so therefore they can be proud of the work that they're doing. And I think people who feel proud of the work that they do are more likely to continue doing that work. So I would really encourage any employer listening to this to consider who you're hiring. If you're just looking for a warm body to fill a position, it's not likely that that person's going to deliver the experience that you want them to. And it begins a cycle of discontent. Your customers are going to be unhappy because the employee isn't delivering the service that you've promised to them. And in turn, the employee is unhappy because the customer's mad at them. And this not only hurts your employee retention, but it harms the reputation of your business too. So people expect to be treated well, and they expect for the staff of the place they're visiting to be knowledgeable, friendly, and helpful. And when your staff doesn't live up to the customer's expectations, it's bad for everyone. Another thing that's critically important to us is showing our employees that we value them. And this comes from the top down. Our general manager could probably name every employee's pets and kids because she takes the time to get to talk to everybody and get to know them on a personal level. We do a lot of employee recognition and encourage managers to give ongoing feedback so that employees know that they're a valued member of the team, and we want them to continue working with us. And if there are any concerns, they can address those head on as we go, rather than kind of compiling them all and having a kind of negative year-end review. So taking the time to get to know your employees on a personal level is so important. I once worked for an accounting firm in what I thought was my dream job, and I quit after 6 months for a lot of reasons, but one of them was that nobody took the time to get to know me. You know, I worked next to the same people every single day. We spent hours and hours in the car going to client meetings, and I don't think a single one could have told you what my spouse's name was or where I lived or really anything about me. And to be honest, being treated like a number really stinks. We're all humans, and we want to be treated like humans. And, you know, there's that Maya Angelou quote that says, people won't remember what you said or did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And it's so true. So the very simple act of taking an interest and making people feel like their role and their presence really matters can totally change the way that someone views their job. And I think that, or I hope that we'd all agree that every role in your company is an important one, no matter how much someone from the public might look down on it. For example, anyone in hospitality or restaurant can tell you that without a dishwasher, you're up a creek. But how many of you have gone up to your dishwasher lately and said, thank you, I appreciate you, we couldn't run this business without you? So if you don't have a habit of thanking your staff, I really suggest you start one, because when you don't treat people well, they're going to start looking for somebody that does. And as far as benefits are concerned, I think a lot of seasonal businesses struggle. We definitely fall into that category because a vast majority of our employees don't qualify as full-time. And so then they can't get onto our health insurance, 401k and whatnot. But in an attempt to offset this, we do offer a lot of employee perks. So we get staff meals twice a day, deep discounts on rooms, dining, gift shop goodies, free use of our bikes, kayaks, and pool for our employees and their families, lots of employee swag, employee appreciation parties, the list goes on. And while it doesn't necessarily combat the lack of benefits head on, I do think it helps employees see seasonal employment as worthwhile, because they do get a lot in return for their time. And thankfully, marketplace insurance is now fairly affordable and it's accessible to everyone. So that's helped us a lot. I would really recommend having somebody on your staff who is knowledgeable of all of the options and is able to help employees enroll. So I have people come to my office all the time to look at marketplace insurance options and go over it together. And it's especially important for somebody who's maybe not as computer literate, just to have somebody there who can say, okay, now click next. It just really helps them to feel like we care, that they have everything that they need, even if it doesn't directly relate to their job. And then the last thing I'll touch on, I'll try to make it brief, talk specifically about seasonal employees. And that's stay in touch with them. Some employees love seasonal employment and they do not want to be contacted over the winter, but other ones really like that connection and want to know that you care about them. So at the Noniantum, we do lots of extracurricular activities over the winter. We have a book club. We go bowling once a winter. We go to the Camden Snow Bowl. Today we're having Valentine's Day card making for the nursing home. And everyone's welcome to come, and it'll surprise you which employees do choose to come to these kinds of things. And winter is hard for a lot of people here in Maine, especially if you're not a skier. It's dark, it's cold. And so it's really nice to have things that people can look forward to going to with people that they enjoy spending time with. And it goes back to showing your staff that you care about them. If you lay off your staff and don't contact them whatsoever for 3, 4, 5 months, why would they want to come back to work for you? You're not interested in maintaining a relationship with them, so they shouldn't be interested in maintaining their relationship with you. So I really recommend checking in on your people, make sure they've got everything they need, see if they need help applying for unemployment, because dropping off the face of the earth and then only showing back up when you need them for something screams transactional, and none of us want to be part of a transactional relationship. So being a seasonal employer is hard in terms of retention, but I think by hiring the right candidates for your business, showing them that they're important to you, offering a lot of perks for non-traditional benefits, and keeping in touch during the off season, you can really retain those employees. And it's a little extra legwork at the front, but in the end, you won't have to scramble to hire new staff every single year. And you end up with employees that don't embody your value and vision for your company when you're constantly having that turnover.
Oh, that's awesome, Colby. Thanks. Now, I know that having seasonal employees makes it a little tougher, and I know you guys do a great job. I'm always seeing your winter walks and all of your excursions on Facebook. But you've even gone so far as to help people find winter employment, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I compile a list of all kinds of different seasonal employers. For example, LL Bean and FedEx are always hiring kind of winter seasonal help. And we're really happy to share that information with people because we want them to have the information and to be able to have the money that they need to last for the winter. And really with the expectation that they'll come back to us. But if they don't, that's okay too. If they find something that they're happier with, we want them to be happy.
Excellent. Okay, well, Mike, I know the bank is very different, obviously, from the Noniantum in terms of its seasonality and everything. Why don't you tell us what you're doing there that's very clearly working?
Sure. And so many great tips from Colby. So many of the things that you're saying and strategies that you're using, Colby, are strategies that we try to use here at Kennebunk Savings. So at Kennebunk Savings, obviously we're a year-round employer. We have about 340 employees, and the majority of them are full-time employees. So for us, retention is not a season-to-season thing. It's keeping people here for the long term, because some of the roles, some of the positions that we have are very complex. They involve licensing and certification. So you want to keep people here for many years. So we have some strategies that we use that we find are successful in helping us keep those people here with us. The first thing that I think is critically important, as Colby mentioned, is having an intentional culture. When you go out and speak to people, when you are hiring people, you're interviewing them, and in effect, they're interviewing you as well. So you want to be able to articulate very effectively who you are as an organization, what your culture is all about, what your values are. Every organization has a culture. The only question is it a culture that formed organically on its own, or is it a culture that you formed intentionally on purpose, a culture that you want to have in your organization? You want to make sure that you have alignment between what you say and what's actually happening. Because when people come on board, you can sell everything about what your culture is. But if when they arrive, they find that what they see doesn't align with what they heard beforehand, that's getting that relationship off on a very bad foot. So you need to make sure that there is alignment between what you say about your culture and what your culture actually is. Peter Drucker, the management consultant, talks about how culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't have a good culture in your organization, your strategy, you might as well throw it out the window, because culture is going to undermine anything that you're trying to do. If you have a poor culture or a toxic culture, it's going to get in the way of everything that you're trying to do as an organization. Articulate what your values are. Many people have their core values, many organizations have their core values, but very few people have ever actually taken the time to sit down and articulate or even write down, these are these are our core values. It's important that you have those core values, and it's important that you're able to explain what those values are to other people. Here at Kennebunk Savings, as a financial institution, obviously one of our core values is trust, integrity, and then being proactive and showing empathy. So for us, those are our 4 core values as an organization. You'll see that reinforced all throughout the organization. In every training session that we have, we tie things back to our core values. We want to make sure that we have fun. As Colby talked about, it's not just about work. You want to engage people on multiple different levels, so we work very hard to have fun. Once you've defined what your culture is, now you can go out and hire people that are going to be a good fit for your culture. You want to make sure that you're attracting the right people for the right reasons. What we found, as Colby mentioned, is a good cultural fit far outperforms a good technical fit. We have hired people in here that are technically proficient at what they are doing, but didn't fit well with the culture of our organization. And those people tend not to stay. They don't feel like this is the right place for them, and they move on. So as Colby mentioned, if I have to choose between a nice person with a good cultural fit or a technically proficient person, I'm going to take the nice person, because we can train them how to be technically proficient. You can't train somebody how to be nice. We work very hard at finding the right people. We don't wait till those people find us. We go out and actively recruit people. We have a couple of programs here at the bank that fit with our social responsibility initiatives. One of the programs that we have that we're very proud of is a program called the GO program. That's a partnership that we have with organizations like Caring Unlimited, which is York County's Domestic Violence Support Center. We also partner with Haven, New Hampshire, which is a similar organization in the seacoast of New Hampshire. We actually go out and recruit primarily women, because unfortunately in our society, that's the people that are mostly using those services. But we actively go out and we market the bank and recruit people from their programs to come here and work at the bank. We've been doing that for about 5 years, and it's been very successful at bringing people back into the workforce, and people that have some tremendous life experiences and great empathy that they can share with our customers. Having a good benefits package is very, very important, but it's about finding the right balance between salary and benefits. We are in a fortunate position as a large institution that we do have a lot of financial resources behind us. So we're able to offer health insurance, pension, 401k, lots of different things, but oftentimes it's the intangible things. It's knowing that there is a career progression, a path forward in their career. That's something that's really critical in keeping people here. Just to give you an example of that, we, like most organizations over the last few years, have had some fairly significant turnover. On average, in any given year, it's not unusual to have about 20% of our employees turnover, and that's primarily in the entry levels of the organization. What we found is if we're able to give people a clearly defined career progression as to how they can move forward in the organization, that dramatically increases our retention. So we have two programs that we use here at the bank. The first, for entry-level people coming into the organization, is a program called our Professional Banker Program. That's where somebody who is brand new to the industry, who has no experience in banking, can take part in a year's worth of classes and seminars. We pay about $2,000 in tuition for each person that goes through that program. Over the last 3 years, we've had 33 people complete that program. Out of the 33 people that completed the program, 32 of them are still here at the bank. For people that are a little bit more advanced in the organization, we have our Leadership Academy, and we have several different levels of our Leadership Academy. We've had 16 people go through our Leadership Academy in the last 3 years. All 16 of those people are still here at the bank. So out of 39 people that we've put through these clearly defined career progression pathways, 38 out of those 39 people are still here at the organization. So we found that to be an extremely powerful tool for retaining people here at the organization. Onboarding is another very important part of employee retention. To get your people in the door, you've made a bunch of promises to them about your culture, your perks, the opportunities. Onboarding is the first real test of those promises. That's where they first come in contact with the organization and the people of your organization. So you need to make sure that you have an intentionally designed onboarding program that's built around the experience that your new employee will have. Up to 20% of staff turnover occurs within the first 45 days. So having an intentional onboarding program is really going to impact that initial turnover that you're going to have. You want to make sure that you're focusing on not just onboarding your new staff members into the technical things that they need to do, but more importantly, onboarding them into the culture of your organization. Make sure that onboarding feels like a planned event. The new employee is at the center of the process. Onboarding is about teaching the staff how things work. It's about defining for them what good looks like in your organization. You want to work to set up some early wins for them. Give them some achievable goals that they can get in that first week, that first month, that first 3 months, so that they can see and feel themselves that they're moving forward in the organization. And also, as Colby referenced in her talk, build a sense of community. Make a connection with these people, get to know them, and let them get to know you. Because a person who feels recognized as an individual is going to feel much more a part of the organization. You want to give your people meaningful work. Once you've got them onboarded, once they start working, make sure they understand how their work not only benefits the organization, but benefits them and benefits the community. We try to make sure that our people understand the difference between their tasks and their purpose, right? And there's a difference between your task and your purpose. There's a story that's told about a person that's walking past a construction site, and he sees a couple of people that are building a wall. So this person walks up to them and says, "Excuse me, would you mind telling me what is it that you're doing?" First person turns around and says, "Well, we're laying bricks." And the second person says, "We're building a cathedral." And we share that story with our new staff members to explain to them the difference between task and purpose. Your task is laying bricks. Your purpose is to build a cathedral. Your purpose goes beyond your task, and it's something that any one of us probably can't accomplish on our own. But collectively working together with a group of other like-minded people, you can oftentimes achieve something that any one of us on our own would not be capable of doing. So we try to make sure that our folks understand that there's a difference between your task and your purpose always trumps task, right? So your task might be making beds or sweeping the floor. But if you see a guest or a customer that needs help, you know that this is the time for you to set aside your task for a moment to achieve that greater purpose that it is that your organization stands for. So we really work hard to make sure that our people understand how they fit into the big picture and how the tasks that they're doing contributes to the overall success of the organization. We want to make sure that our folks feel that they have input on decision making and that they can influence the direction of the organization. And we want to make sure that we're giving them a good work-life balance. So those are the strategies that we use to try and make sure that our folks are well connected to the organization. We have many people here at Kennebunk Savings that have been here for 20, 30. We even have some people that have been here for 40 years. So once we're able to get a person in and once we're able to get them immersed within our culture, we have a tremendous success rate of keeping our people. But it's in those first few months, when you bring in that new person in those first few months, that's where you've got to really be focused on making sure that they are getting tied into your culture and your purpose.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, you mentioned getting people set up for early wins. What might some of that look like? Because that's a really interesting concept, and I realize would look very different from industry to industry, but how does that work at the bank?
Yeah, sure. So about 80% of the people that we onboard are coming into our entry-level positions. Those would be what most people would refer to as a teller. We call them customer service assistants here at the bank, or people coming into our call center. So those would be customer care representatives. So for those folks, oftentimes in many cases, they're younger. Oftentimes it might be their first professional type job. Many of them come to the bank without any real experience in finance whatsoever. One of the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome as an organization is all of us live in a society where there is a cultural taboo about talking about money, right? We don't talk to each other about money. You don't walk up to a person and say, so how much do you make? Or how much have you saved for retirement? When you meet people, you talk to them about lots of different things. You might talk to them about their health and fitness. You might talk to them about their relationships. You don't talk to them about money. So it isn't a miracle that when people show up here on their first day, there's a switch on the back that we flick and suddenly they're comfortable talking to people about money. That's something that takes time, and we really have to work to train them how to do that. So we work very hard at teaching them how to have conversations with people about money, how to ask questions in a way that are more likely going to get a response that's going to give you something to work with. So for a lot of them, it's really about, this is how you make a deposit. This is how you make a withdrawal. This is how you make a loan payment. Here's how you ask that elderly person that's standing at your window looking to withdraw $6,000 in cash. Here's how you ask them, what is it that you're planning to do with the money, in a way that's not going to have them respond by saying it's none of your business, right? Because oftentimes when you're looking at that, you might be looking at a situation where somebody is being scammed, somebody is being victimized by elder abuse. So we make sure that we're teaching people how to ask these questions, how to have these conversations, and how to do the technical things that they need to do to be proficient in their job. So we give them goals that they have to accomplish within their first couple of weeks, within the first month, within the first 3 months. And there's that pathway for them so that they know how they're doing. And then also we put resources in their path, knowing that there's a lot of things they're not going to know the answer to. So we don't necessarily need them to know the answers. We just need them to know where to go to find the answers.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mike. Doug, I bet you have even more concepts to share with us.
Yes, that was all phenomenal. I will try to hit on different things just to kind of add value for the attendees. As many of you might know, Spurling Fitness is a much smaller company. We are a team of 10 and about a 50-50 split between part-time staff and full-time staff. So we deal with retention issues like many of you. Fitness, I always make a joke that you probably don't know anybody that has retired from the fitness industry. It's typically not a career industry. It is typically something that somebody does as a hobby job. And because of that, has enormous amount of challenges with retention and culture, which I will probably talk a little bit more about because, as Mike alluded to, I do agree with that quote of culture eats strategy for breakfast. So, and as Laura alluded to, I do have the pleasure and the challenge of working with the gyms across the country. And so able to pull in, some of the challenges that we deal here with in New England is not the challenges that people deal with. For example, up right now in Canada, they're still dealing with lockdown. So it's kind of hopefully, multifaceted. So I'm going to hit on three things: vision and values, which Mike hit on values very nicely. So I'll speak more to the vision in that section. Your company meeting rhythm, which does not have to be as complex as it sounds. And then finally talking about compensation plans, which I know is always a challenge. So I'll speak more to the vision. And I think, my goal with each of these three sections is also to give you a resource, because I know this morning's probably a little bit of drinking from a fire hose. So if you have a resource, you can always go back and dig in. So when I say vision, what I'm kind of phrasing is a picture of your company 3 to 5 years from now. I used to say 10, and then COVID came, and we don't even know what we're doing tomorrow. So let's peel that back to 3 years. But 3 years from now, can you articulate and put a visual in a narrative to your team, to your community, where your company's going, what it looks like? I use the analogy or the story of if you show up to a street where you can turn left or right and you don't know which way to go, you roll your window down, there's somebody standing on the side of the street, and you ask, do I turn left or right? Well, they're going to ask you, where are you going? And so I think that's a large part of retention for employees is, as Mike alluded to very nicely with the task versus purpose, they're in these mundane tasks, and they don't understand the purpose, and they don't understand where this company's going. People are very motivated by building something, right? Being a part of something bigger than themselves. And so if you have a clear vision that they contribute to, right? So we often at Spurling do visioning exercises for, okay, 3 years from now, what's our training look like? What's our community look like? What's our accountability look like? Everything. And they're the ones that are sharing. Sure, I may be kind of, steering the ship, but it's important that every team member has something in the vision that they are excited about. Because if there's a vision where 3 years from now, this is where the company's going, and they're not excited about any of it, it's going to be really hard. Money's not going to retain that person, right? They're just they need to feel like they're inspired for something bigger than themselves. So as far as frameworks for how to do a vision, that's probably a whole training in itself. So I'll just share some resources. I'm a huge fan of the book Vivid Vision. I'll throw that in the chat for you. Vivid Vision has a very nice framework of how to create a company vision, as well as there's a phenomenal company that I'm a big fan of out in Ann Arbor, Michigan, called Zingerman's. And they're actually in the food business, but they also have a staff development arm to their business. And Ari, the co-founder, has a very nice framework for how to create a company vision. But ultimately, the goal with that, just to wrap that, is the team members in all of our industries, right? Whether we're talking banking, fitness, hospitality, whatever, the tasks can be mundane. And I would say more than ever, employees, yes, the comp plan, which we'll talk about, is important, but they truly need to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. And having a vision that they are excited about, it just allows them to kind of at least partially look past some of those mundane tasks. And you as an owner or manager, it allows you to have a clear strategy. Because if you know 3 years from now, this is, maybe not exactly, but roughly where I'm trying to take this company, you can then reverse engineer your plans for this week, this quarter. What am I doing to move a little bit closer to that vision? So go ahead and check out those resources. I'll touch a little bit on values. I know Mike hit on those as well. We think of our values. We have 6 core values. I think somewhere in that 3 to 6 range is good. More than that, they're probably not your true core values. And we think of our values as our guardrails. It's how we hire, fire, and inspire. So if somebody does not fit our values, they're probably not going to be a good culture fit. For example, one of our values at Spurling Fitness is humility. The fitness industry is notorious for your textbook kind of very arrogant, cocky trainer that knows everything. And they think they do, right? And so we try to make sure we hire people who have an enormous amount of humility. There's always something more they can learn. There's always a better way to do it. Another one of our values is curiosity. In this business specifically, it's a very advice-heavy business. Do this, don't eat this, work out. And that's just not our stick. We tend to play more in the curiosity position, meaning we're asking lots of questions about that person. We're becoming more curious about them rather than telling them what to do. So if you think about that, that just helps. And those are our values, right? Those aren't going to be your values. But for us, that helps us hire people when we're looking at hiring people. Do they fit? We'll ask questions around, do they, give me a scenario where you were curious about something. Another one of our values, play. Fitness is boring. People hate exercise. It's not exciting. I know. But if we can make it a little bit more playful, a little bit more fun, then there's a higher chance that, you're going to have success with us. So those values, we got to make sure people fit them when we bring them on. We also will use that to inspire people throughout, bring that up. You can't just bring it up in onboarding. It's super important, as we've chatted about, to have good onboarding, but it doesn't end there, right? You constantly have to be bringing up your values. When we talk about client scenarios, we will tie that to which value maybe we dropped the ball on. So that's how we inspire. And then, there does come a point where people need to move on, and it's typically, you can tie it back to they are not fitting one of your company values. So that's a little bit on vision and values. My second kind of strategy that you might consider is evaluating your meeting rhythm. And I realize that can sound, for us smaller businesses, that can sound a little bit closer to maybe a bigger organization's tactic. But I'm a huge fan of good meetings. And a resource that I'll throw out right away is you can go ahead and read every book by Patrick Lencioni. I will put his name in the chat. Patrick Lencioni is my favorite author on meetings. His best book, in my opinion, is Death by Meetings. And it's a funny title, but it really talks about how to run a good meeting. Because I think that's where people get afraid of running meetings, especially as a smaller company, is they think, it's going to be this large meeting where everybody sits around and doesn't get anything done. We use meetings as both a training and a culture building strategy. So if you think about it, and many of your industries are the same, whether we got, landscapers on here, hospitality people on here, whatever, your day to day, you're in the trenches, right? You're if it's housekeeping, they're in the rooms cleaning beds. If they're servers, they're dealing with the guests. The people at the bank, they're dealing with the customers. Most of our businesses, especially service-based businesses, you're client facing 99% of the time. So if you think about it, if you use our business as example, 90% of a coach's job is in front of clients by themselves with their group of clients working with them. So they have no ability to conversate with fellow employees because they're responsible for their clients. So we use meetings as a way to, of course, revisit training, update communications, look at brainstorming, new strategies, etc. But we also use it as a way to bring the team together. And there's no clients, in the gym for us when we do our meetings. And, it's not like they can't be there, but it's the only chance for my team to come together without their job responsibility of serving clients. So we believe in a strong meeting rhythm. And I think that's probably the key word there that I'll stress is rhythm, meaning that it happens on a regular basis, not the whole, hey, stuff's going kind of, haywire, let's get a meeting. We meet, for example, every Thursday, 10:45 is our team meeting. Every Tuesday, 10:45 is our coaches meeting. Every Monday, I meet with my leadership team, 10:30. It's rhythmic. It's on their schedule. It's on my schedule. It's an expectation. It's not this, oh crap, Doug needs to meet with us because there's something wrong, right? There's no stress with it. And we often start every meeting with an icebreaker, and it's usually fun. People are laughing. We might play a short little game. We might do a little, question roundtable. Just again, something to bring people together and to talk in a non-formal way. And then, of course, the bulk of the meeting is time to communicate things that are going on in the business, brainstorm strategy, train on process, etc. And that's honestly I know, I'm sure there's a lot of managers and owners listening to this. And, one of the things that I think I've done a decent job at is delegating in such a way that doesn't make me go crazy with my team having to talk. And I only have to talk to 10, let alone 200 or 300 people, right? And it's because we run really good meetings. So I can spread what I need to spread at those meetings, those 2 to 3 hours. I can have my touch points. And the better you get at those, that's 90% of your work right there. You can delegate, you can communicate, instead of having to say, okay, I gotta talk to Laura tomorrow, then later this afternoon I gotta talk to Mike, and tomorrow morning I gotta talk to Colby. And it's just all these, like, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. If you can get on a meeting rhythm, it not only has the culture benefit, but I think it has a massive training and communication benefit as well. So Patrick Lincioni is my resource there. And then finally, compensation plans. As Colby and Mike alluded to, I know that's a big part of it. I would say that, especially speaking for maybe we tend, similar to some of the entry level positions at the other organizations, we tend to attract a younger hire. Money is not the number one factor we are continually seeing. Sure, they need to be able to live, they need to be able to pay their bills, they need to be able to grow, etc. But oftentimes I would tie back your comp plan to some of the, how can you fit in, like Colby mentioned, some of those perk benefits. It doesn't, we're fortunate, rare in the fitness industry. We do offer health insurance, we do offer retirement. But even if you can't offer that, some of those perk benefits, understanding that money is not the number one motivator for people. It is a factor, but once you get to a certain point, once they reach their threshold, it's not the number one factor. So we try to pay attention a lot to their schedule, making sure we can give them their ideal schedule. For example, in the fitness industry, as you know, it starts very early. Our morning coaches are at the gym at 5 a.m., 5:15 a.m., and we go till 7:30 at night. So, are you a morning person or an evening person? We're going to try to give you your preference, right? You're not going to be able to work 8 to 5 in this industry, but if you're a morning person, we'll try to have you staff the morning sessions as opposed to the afternoon sessions. So they're employees' preferred schedule. As Mike alluded to with the career path, I think, and I would also tie in the vision with that, some role and responsibility growth so that they can have challenges, right? People need challenges. That's what keeps them motivated. They can have a challenge in their current roles, a project they're tackling, something that they're not good at, and they're going to be challenged to get better at it, right? And then, of course, a growth trajectory. And then when able, of course, organization dependent flexibility, right? So for example, in our business, there are, 80% of an employee's job has to be done at the gym, right? We train people at a gym, but there are administrative duties, reaching out to clients, checking in on clients, updating programs and such. They can do that from a laptop anywhere. right? So trying to create a flexible schedule when possible. And then my resource for this section is a great framework and book called The Great Game of Business by Jack Welch, who many of you probably know from his GE days. And he teaches a framework where it's based around every employee having a critical number. And this has been a way for us to not have such a high set payroll and only pay out above and beyond if the business/employee performs. So for example, a critical number in our industry would be a coach's utilization rate, meaning if their total capacity for a day is 50 clients and they hit 20 and they only see 25 clients, they have a 50% utilization rate, right? And so having an employee have a critical number, one, it goes back to what Mike was saying about making sure people know what good is. Once we define a critical number, and that's a mutual agreement, they contribute to what that is as well. If an employee has that, they now know what good is, and then we put a small incentive behind that critical number. So they have their base pay, and then if they hit that critical number each quarter, they get a payout. So it allows us, we'll do that on our front end staff for sales. We'll do that on our back end, our coaching staff for retention, which is a massive KPI in our business, utilization rate, as I alluded to. So all of you have these numbers that you can come up with that basically it's the idea of the way I think about compensation is I don't want people to worry about where they're going to their next check is going to come from or how they're going to feed their family. So I want them to have a really strong base, right? Common in our industry is everything's commission. You got to go get your own clients, and we do not like that at all. So everybody has a base, but then and that pays your bills. That's your guarantee. But then if you hit this critical number, and we actually build in 3 tiers to that critical number, kind of a ladder system. If you hit those, we know the business is performing better, so we're able to pay it out, and then they have something to chase. So the Great Game of Business framework, if you want to dig into that, outlines all of that. So those are my big 3.
Thank you so much. Doug, talk a little bit, you mentioned the growth trajectory, and I know that's not easy sometimes at small companies where there's not an obvious growth path in terms of going up the ladder. The gym is a smaller business. It's not that there's a whole bunch of management positions to move into. How do you keep someone feeling like they're still on a growth trajectory when there's maybe not another role for them to leap into?
Sure. So, as Laura alluded to, the gym basically has 3 levels that you can climb, and the owner is level 3. So unless I die, that's not going to happen. So it's basically your front end staff, your administrative staff, your coaches, and then, we have 2 managers. So there's not that traditional kind of upward climb. Where we get growth more so is in thinking about, is there maybe a small arm or division to your business that somebody wants to own or build out, and give them kind of some, not necessarily equity ownership, but some, responsibility ownership, some incentive to own that division. An example in our business, and then I'll share an example maybe outside of our industry, is our core service is training memberships. You show up at the gym, you work with a coach, we train you. But we have ancillary services such as nutrition coaching, such as more of the kind of personal development side, life coaching stuff. These ancillary services that really are not our bread and butter. And so we will have an employee who expresses interest in that. And that basically becomes, we call it, they're entrepreneurial, right? They're entrepreneurs, meaning they have their base, but then they have this kind of side hustle over here that they can grow, right? So I do think it ties back to your vision. If you get really good at building out a strong vision every 3 to 5 years, the employees will say, I remember 6 years ago, one of my employees said, listen, we don't offer nutrition. And we know that's one of the number one things that people need for results. So let's offer a nutrition coaching program. Okay, what does that look like for you to own? right? So, and we'll do, you know, for the detailed people on this, we'll do revenue shares for that program. So they don't necessarily, you know, have an hourly rate with that, but it gives them kind of this side project to own. So that's how we do it. And I think, you know, if there's maybe a project that you as the owner or manager, maybe you're not excited about, but you think it would be good for the business, or you don't have time to get to, can one of your employees own that and maybe get a small incentive for growing that arm of the business?
Great. Well, I'd like to open it up to questions, and if anyone has one, feel free to raise your hand and I will unmute you and you can ask your question, or you can feel free to put it in the chat. One of the questions I had, and I don't know if Mike or Colby mentioned it, but I know you both talked about especially hiring for culture and kindness. How do you kind of tease that out perhaps during the interview process? Are there specific questions? Do you just sort of go with a gut? How do you get there?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of both. So it starts with the job description, literally on our little job description, sort of in lieu of like a equal opportunity statement, is something along the lines of, if you are kind and hardworking, you have a home here, regardless of who you are and what your background is. So we try to get people on board that way. Then I will ask specific situational questions, you know, such as if a guest were really furious at you about something that wasn't your fault, how would you respond to them? And you kind of get a feel for how people might be empathetic or not in that way. And just in general, after a few years of having these interviews under my belt, I generally have a sense of how people are too.
Some of the things that obviously throughout the organization, we have quite a few hiring managers. We have 19 different locations and more than a dozen different back office departments. So we have literally dozens of different people that are hiring throughout the organization. You got to make sure that all of your people that are in those hiring roles understand what your culture is, what your values are, and what it is that you're trying to hire for. I did a lot of hiring over the years. I worked in our branch system for about 18 years before I came up here to Kennebunk to head up the training area about 6 years ago. When I would interview somebody, the things that I was very conscious of, you know, even in banking, we're kind of a hospitality industry, right? Because people come through the door, we want them to feel welcomed, we want them to feel valued, we want to put them at ease. For a lot of people, finance is intimidating. Just like for me to go to the emergency room, that's not a familiar environment. It's not a comfortable environment for me to go to. When I go there, I want to be put at ease. And for a lot of people, when they go to the bank, that's not that different than going to the emergency room. It's a strange environment. They're using terms and phrases that you're not entirely familiar with. So you want people that are going to put you at ease. So when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm watching to see, how are they putting me at ease, right? Now, yes, I'm the one that's driving the interview and I'm trying to put them at ease, but what are they doing to try and put me at ease? The other thing that I'm always looking at also is, and anybody can put on a good show. And oftentimes people have kind of prepared themselves and they know I'm being interviewed. These are the things that I want to say. But sometimes, you know, if a person is faking it, they are focusing everything on the person that's interviewing them and disregarding the other people that they come in contact throughout the organization. So when we bring somebody in and I bring somebody in for an interview, I'll have some people staged along the way that person's going to come in contact with. It might be somebody that's sweeping something up in the lobby area. It might be somebody that's at the front desk answering the phones. I want to know, how did they treat you? How do they interact with you, a person that they do not necessarily think is important to them in terms of them getting that job? If they treat those people with courtesy and respect, that's a good indicator that they're likely to treat your customers with courtesy and respect, because they're not just doing it because there's something that in it for them. So those are some of the strategies that I use to try and make sure that we're getting the right people.
Excellent. Doug,
I would just add, yeah, I would just add, I think that's great stuff. I would just add, in your questions, I might challenge you to, rather than thinking in kind of, if this happened, what would you do? Ask literally about their past experience, because anybody sitting, I don't say anybody, but a lot of people sitting in an interview, when they ask, like, for example, for us, you know, do you have humility or anything like that? They're going to say yes. They're not going to want to look stupid in front of you. So there's a lot of like scenarios where we will try to ask them about, give me an example in the past where you showed X, Y, and Z. Just because that's hard. That's a little bit more hard to fake, as opposed to, of course, they're going to say yes to kind of, are you good at X, Y, and Z? So trying to use, when possible, of course, if they have it, some past experience to kind of have that social proof. But we also will do what Mike said in regards to, you know, they're often for us interviewing with myself or Josh, my manager, but we will purposefully schedule the interview when clients are in the gym rather than during a quiet time. And so we want them to see, do they take initiative going and introducing themselves to clients? And you know, as Mike alluded to, do they, you know, say hi to, they're interviewing with myself and Josh, but there's a half dozen other employees walking around. Are they introducing themselves? So I think there's a lot of those intangible things rather than, you know, I know in my role on the consulting side, I often get asked for a list of interview questions, and it's good to have those in your pocket. But I think some of those kind of scenarios will tell you a lot more.
Colby, I know. Oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, we've been in a tough spot these last couple of years where it's hard to get people. So sometimes when you have that interviewee come through the door, you find yourself in the role of, you're trying to sell the job and sell your company to them, and you end up doing 80% of the talking, and you really don't find out what it is that they're all about. So in a good interview, in my opinion, the interviewer is doing about 20% of the talking, and the interviewee is doing about 80% of the talking.
Interesting. Colby, we talked a little bit about sort of the challenge of seasonal businesses and retention. How do you go about, you know, you've got this 92% of people coming back. How do you go about kind of the welcoming back process? And does the training ever end?
Yeah, so no, training never ends. But we start early. So I have already sent out an email to every single employee asking, are you coming back? What is your schedule going to look like? Do you want to switch departments? Are you interested in splitting your time between departments? So really starting that conversation early, just to kind of get yourself in the back of their mind, has been really critical for us. And some people will say, especially some of our students will say, you know, I'm not sure yet. I might be getting an internship, et cetera, et cetera. Could I let you know later? And so I say, yeah, sure. And then I make sure to follow up with them and say, hey, you know, I know you maybe were looking into an internship. Did that pan out? Can I help you with that? Or might you be coming back to us? And then as far as once our season actually goes underway, everybody goes through, so in their first year, our program called Nonantum University, it's basically all about the history of our business, because we did open in the 1800s. So a very long history, and guest asks us all about that. You know, when was the hotel built? Who was it built by? So everybody learns all of that in their first year. But then they continue to return to our program and learn about any changes, if we've done any sort of renovations, and they get all of that new information so that they're really able to talk to our customers about all of the most up-to-date information. So that's been really helpful, because I think people are excited to learn new things and be able to share that with our guests.
Nice. We have a question from Bob LaChance at Anchor Fence. Bob said, for some of us with physical labor needs, our biggest challenge is getting potential employees to apply. We stress the personal satisfaction of the job, seeing the finished product, but the attraction of digging holes every day is perhaps difficult to attract new hires. The people they do have been doing it for 6 to 20 years, but new hires have been difficult. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I would say it's about tying it back to purpose, right? You know, we do a lot of things that are very task oriented and technical in our own way, digging holes. Taking a mortgage application, for example, is about 45 minutes of just asking pretty mundane questions: social security number, date of birth, what's your income, all of these types of things. And when you do that 30, 40 times over the course of a week, it can become very, very repetitive. But what I try to get people to understand is to think about what it is that that person is trying to achieve in their life, right? When a person calls up the bank and asks for a mortgage rate, they're asking for a mortgage rate, but what they really want is somebody to help them buy their dream home, right? They have this vision in their mind of what they want. And then if you can understand what their dream is and how what you're doing helps them fit into that dream, that gives you a lot more fulfillment in terms of your job. I don't get excited about taking loan applications, but I get excited about putting people into their home, right? So, you know, what I would say is, for those people that are thinking about the job as being digging holes, what you got to do is get them to understand what those holes do for their customers, right? What does that fenced in yard mean for them? Is it because they have a dog, and that dog they're trying to get that dog integrated into the family, and this is going to give that dog a safe place to play where it's not running through the neighborhood? Or is it that they have a kid that doesn't understand that you can't run out into the street, and this is going to provide that kid with safety, and you are basically making it that this kid isn't going to run out into the street? So that's what I would say, is try to find a way to tie those mundane tasks into the vision and the purpose of what it is that customer is trying to achieve to make their life better.
Mm-hmm. Doug?
Yeah, I would just add, I think from a strategy standpoint, to actually get people to raise their hands, and I know Bob well and his business, looking at things like, I know we've used internship programs. So from, local trade schools, high schools, universities, is there any type of internship program where they can come in as an intern, apprentice? I know is common in the trades industry, but hard to find. I think, going to more of those non-traditionals, and then understanding this has been a big learning curve for me, is that what you like to do is not what everybody likes to do. And so, understanding, like, for example, in our industry, it would be the equivalent of cleaning, right? Gym has to be very clean. We don't want, especially nowadays, we don't want a dirty gym. And I thought nobody likes to clean. But I have coaches that's literally like the highlight of their days, to put their headphones on and not have to talk to people and clean. And so understanding maybe that's what you're selling, is like, there are people that are introverts that do not want a client-facing job, that that we can certainly show the purpose and the end result, but they just want headphones in and digging holes, and it's mundane, but it's certainly not stressful, I would imagine. So looking for that type of personality. But as far as a tactic to get applicants, I would probably gear more towards, the trade schools, the high schools that have kind of I know, for example, I went to a trade high school. So, people were going into more the non-traditional, not a university track. So some of those resources that you can tap into for potential feeds.
I absolutely agree with that, with the kind of non-traditional workforces, if you will. I think putting these types of jobs up on Indeed or Facebook or wherever you're doing your hiring might not garner the attraction that you're looking for. But trying to find some organizations that might be able to help you find the right people for the positions that you're hiring for, I think is a really good strategy. There's an excellent organization called MainWorks that hires people who are in active recovery from substance use disorder, specifically into construction-based jobs. I know all of the prisons in Maine have workforce reentry programs. There's a lot of kind of feeder programs for folks who are looking for more physical type jobs or skilled labor in that way. So definitely trying to partner with some of these organizations could definitely be a good way, rather than just putting your job on the internet and hoping it sticks.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question from Tom, which I think we'll use to wrap up our session here. Thomas Sisso says, how important is self-development of your employees instead of relying solely on company or corporate training?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, Tom. obviously your staff members know when they're coming to training, right? Training is usually kind of an event. They go to a place or they go to a Zoom room and it's designated time for training. But in addition to training, an important part of developing your people is coaching, right? So if you were to go out, and I would encourage anybody on the call today to try this out with your folks, all right? Go to your supervisors and managers and ask them how much of their time do they spend coaching? And most of your managers will tell you, I'm coaching all the time, right? Every day I'm coaching my staff. Now, go to a staff member and ask them, how much time are you spent being coached? And they're going to say, I never get coached, right? So what's the difference between your managers who are saying, I'm coaching all the time, and your employees who are saying, I'm never getting coached? It's because we don't say, I'm coaching you now, right? And sometimes with new people coming into the industry, they don't recognize the fact that all of these tips and tricks and advice that you're giving them is actually coaching, unless you specifically designate it as coaching. So I would encourage folks to take what you're already doing, which is that ongoing coaching of your staff, but make sure that you specifically designate it and set aside time where this is going to be coaching time. Because unless you call it that, your staff doesn't believe that they're being coached.
Colby, did you want to jump in
Yeah,
on that?
I agree with all of that. I think it's so important that people are able to develop themselves, and you can have a hand in that, or you can just kind of support them from the sidelines as well. We have a young lady right now who is a shuttle driver / night auditor, but right now she's taking some baking classes through YCCC, and she's so excited to learn another skill that maybe she'll be able to use in our business and maybe not, but it's just something that's making her happy. And she's making new friends at YCCC because she is new to the area. So it's really exciting to see people kind of light up when they're learning something new, and just even if it's just for personal development, it's really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that starts probably in the hiring process and making sure that you're attracting people that are lifelong learners. And it goes back to our value of humility, right? If you're humble, you realize that you always have things to learn, ways to do it better, et cetera. So trying to attract people that are even that growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, and are geared more towards self-development. In our industry, it would be the equivalent of, you go and obtain another certification, or you're reading articles around how to program around an injury or whatever. There's some of that we can kind of push on them, but there's a lot of that they have to have the desire, as Colby said, to learn something new and be curious about, and the motivating challenge. And then as far as like a tangible tactic to take, we do a form every week with our employees called a 515 form. It is 5 questions, and we rotate the questions usually quarterly-ish. But they're questions like, how was this week? What's your plan for next week? Any struggles you're dealing with? Just kind of pulse check questions. And it's filled out at the end of the week on Friday. And then they have a 15-minute meeting with their manager on Monday morning to review and kind of set the plan for the week. So it's quick, it's 15 minutes. You might even, for some of the more faster paced, smaller businesses, you could probably do that as a standing 5-minute check-in. But that, even if you just use the form as a way of pulse checking, and then you have, as Mike alluded to, that 15 minutes to kind of coach them up on, how was last week? What are you working on this week? And then kind of more broadly speaking, their development as a whole.
Great. Well, I want to thank all 3 of you for being here today. I thought there were some incredibly good points that I've been jotting down as fast as I can. We have recorded this. This will be available later today on our YouTube channel. We'll share it on Facebook. We will have some more webinars coming up, something on marketing soon. And one of the programs that we are working on is a recovery-friendly workplace program, hopefully coming into the Kennebunk soon. We're working with the Kennebunk District Area Substance Abuse Disorder Committee, put together by Chief Bob McKenzie here in Kennebunk, and working with Kennebunk Savings. And so we're hoping to roll that out too, as Colby said, sort of another point of entry for potential employees. So keep an eye out for that as well. So thank you all so much. Thank you to our guests who came, and hopefully everyone has a great day. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.